Welcome to the Turning Point Podcast, where business growth meets personal development. We know as leaders and business owners, you're juggling a lot, and we've spent decades creating the best systems, tools, and shifts that bring you unimaginable success in your business and tremendous satisfaction in your personal life. That's just how we thrive around here. And now, here's your host, John Goldman, here to guide you to your own turning point. Let's get started.
Welcome to today's Turning Point podcast. Today's Turning Point is a really exciting podcast because it's on asset ability. What is asset ability? Asset ability is the ability to build an asset. So the idea is an asset you shall sell or keep, but an asset you shall reap. I'm really excited to share with you today Steve Graber. Steve has been my accountant for nearly 30 years. Talk about asset ability. I'm like one of his greatest assets as we're going to talk about recurring revenue, and I've certainly been recurring revenue and gladly doing so with Stephen for all these years. The point of these Turning Point series is to empower leaders to actualize their greatest potential and to live with more joy and to build a business that is an asset and to thrive in your life as you actualize your greatest potential with your business as well as your life. So today we're going to talk about how to make a business transition and how to reduce the dependency on your business. We're going to share with you some real world stories from people that have called in and navigate some of the things that are so important. So the reason why Steve and I are doing this is we think that between the two of us, we might have a few insights after been through many, many wars in terms of how to succeed. When you're in a forest, one of the most important questions to ask is not which direction to go, but which direction not to go. And so we're going to share with you a lot of failures, a lot of things that we've learned, hard knocks along the way. But hopefully through some of those stories, it'll make your life easier and give you some secret tips and tricks and ideas that you can literally take home and put into the bank right away. Welcome, Steve. Really happy to have you. One thing that Steve does, he helps people navigate financial decisions and think strategically. And it's not just about money, it's about value. Thanks, Steve, for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
It's really my pleasure. At Turning Point, we have a team of coaches, consultants, and psychologists, and we empower leaders to have more joy and power, both in their personal life as well as in their business. And through doing this, our process and our system allows people to make a real transformation in their life and their business. So today, what we're talking about is the inner game and the outer game. Steve is a specialist in the outer game in terms of, what'd you tell me, that it's all about the numbers?
No, we stay close to the numbers. That's right. We don't want to go too far off from that.
The reason why we're having a conversation is, for us, it's not just about the numbers, it's about the inner game. And we believe that the inner game drives the outer game. But you can have a great inner game, but if your numbers aren't making sense, it doesn't matter how happy you are. So we're going to look at both sides. We call this soft skills and hard money, which is part of what we're talking about today. All right. We're going to start off with some calls from people who've sent in questions that are real world questions for real world problems. And one of the greatest ways to grow is to sometimes see what someone else is going through and be able to learn from them. Our definition of who is a wise person is, Steve, what's the definition of a wise person?
Somebody that learns from everybody.
That's right. So if you're wise, you'll perhaps learn from someone else. So let's start with our first call-in. His name is Jeff from Baltimore. And Jeff says he's got a thriving e-commerce business that's finally turning a serious profit, but he's kind of obsessive. He says he's obsessing over the tiniest details of website margins and how to packaging tweaks. And he's got customer complaints and he's annoyed and frustrated. And he says clients, in fact, they're always looking for the lowest price. He says that my team handles it fine, but I often insert myself and I'm draining my energy. It's simply not fun. Plus, it always seems like someone's copying us. So I've got two questions. One is, where do owners like me waste energy by over controlling and ruminating? And the other one is, what makes my business actually defensible? So I've got like a moat against competitors. What we're dealing with here is someone who's got a good business and it's kind of a little bit over dependent on him. Where should we start?
If it's okay, I would, the defensive part, I'm going to leave that one up to you. But the over controlling, I think that's something that a lot of business owners go through. I think all of us started by ourselves, maybe in our bedroom or in our den or in our basement. And you need to be able to produce the systems at one point that you don't have to be there. But the problem is we're just so used to doing it all ourselves that we forget that there's somebody here and we just want them to do it like us. And we have to train them. We've got to write it down. We've got to have the system so they do it, the Jeff way, the John Goldman way, the Stephen Graeber way.
We call that simplify, codify, and multiply. So in our opinion, what we found is that owners' job is to simplify how they do it, to codify how they do it, and then to multiply how they do that. And the whole idea here is to reduce the dependency on you as the owner. Because if you don't, then you have a glorified job as opposed to an asset. To simplify, codify, and multiply, there's a wonderful process that we call HABUT, HABUT, which stands for happiest and best use of your time. What that means is an owner starts out by looking at how he spends time. So we track someone's time for a couple of weeks. Let me tell you, when you do this, it creates all sorts of amazing freedom. On average, a person can expect to free up a minimum of 8 hours a week. So that's an extra day per week. What would you do with an extra day per week? Does that sound crazy? We've had people that have freed up as many as 20 or 30 hours a week, which is insane. So how do we do that? The idea is happiest and best use of time. If you own a business and you're crazy like the rest of us, what people say is sometimes, you know what? I want to get free. I think I'm going to start a business. That's like, I want to get free, so I want to have a baby. It's a little bit crazy, and you have the world's worst boss. You know what I mean?
Correct.
The world's worst boss is you because you're obsessive and you don't stop and you're driving it all the time.
Right.
So what we want to do is build a system where you can watch what you're doing, and you want to create two different types of time: habit time and low-it time. Habit time is the happiest and best use of your time, where it's playing to your strengths and compensating for your weaknesses. And then lowest and worst use of your time are things that you need to do the eights. What are the eights? You want to delegate, eliminate, automate, and consolidate. So you want to delegate anything that can be done by someone else. Look, I wasn't going to share this, but my team said, John, make sure you put this back up on your dashboard. That says $500 to $1,000. I should not be doing anything that's not at least $500 to $1,000 per hour. If I'm doing something that's not $500 to $1,000 an hour, that means I'm not doing my job, because the contribution I make for the company is something that's unique for me. So you want to ask yourself, what is your core competency? Core competency means something you do really well. It launches you out of bed. You love learning about it. You can do it consistently, and the market pays you really well for it. For example, I can play basketball and I can shoot a 3-point jump shot. However, it's pretty rare I do it. I'm not very good. I don't love learning about it, and nobody's going to pay me anything to do it. Michael Jordan, on the other hand, he can hit 3-point jump shots on a regular basis. He loves reading about it and thinking about it, and he does it consistently. So the question is, what is your habit? Because if you're not in your habit, you're going to be miserable in your company.
Can I add something?
Please.
Oh, great. So one thing that we talk about is delegate versus abdicate. I think that's where a lot of business owners miss also. We'll get another 8 in there. Not a good 8, but a delegate does not just mean walk away and say, take care of it. It means I'm sure it slips my mind, but there are, I think, 3 to 6 steps in delegating. Right. The tools, the directions, and various different steps. That to me, that's key, because just to say, hey, Mary Jo Sue, go take care of this, it's not going to happen.
Mary Jo Sue. Well, Mary Jo Sue, we call that dump and run. Dude, you dump and run. That you can't dump and run. So the way that you do it first is you simplify, codify, and multiply. And you have to take a look at, what am I doing? And then, is it the sort of thing that I should continue doing or delegate to someone else? Once you decide to delegate to someone else, you have to simplify, how does it work? And then you identify, is this sort of thing that I can delegate to someone else, or do I need help doing it? And in doing that, one of the biggest secrets we found is, once you can identify something that you could drive down. For example, we see a lot of people doing bookkeeping, which is insane. And that's one of the easiest things that you can simply just go delegate. So you codify how you do it. Once you find that person, what I find is that once you find that person that you could delegate to, you give them the job and you say, I want to now create an FAQs, an operation manual. And I want you to be in charge of how we do it. And so I'm going to train you and you're going to shadow me. And then we're going to do a feedback loop. And so there's 4 parts to a feedback loop. The reason why most people aren't free is because they have an expectation that kills them. Expectations are the kiss of death. So what's the expectation? The expectation is, I told you once how to do it. And I expect that you heard it, you understand it, you know how to do it like me. I could fall off a log doing it. I've been doing it so many times. So what we do instead is we have a feedback loop. There's 4 steps in the feedback loop. So I learned this originally from Rudy Mick and one of our clients, Nick Sorello. So Nick Sorello, he was on the cover of Inc. magazine. Why? He got a pizza place. What's so amazing about a pizza place is he built a culture of sense of ownership and a sense of accountability, which we'll talk a little bit later. So they simplified and codified everything. They have an operational card, which is amazing. When you come in, there's like, this time card that you punch in that, or there's a whole bunch of action. Like people, I don't know if they still have them, but used to be you punch in a time clock in, time card out, time card out, time card in, time card out. So they took a rack like that and they had a green stripe on the top and a red stripe on the bottom. And when you came in, they were all red stripes. So you came in, you made sure everything was in order. If something's not in order, or when you leave, there's a red strip across the top, which is really cool. So they operationalized everything. They made a checklist for everything. So what we look at here is that if it moves, measure it. And so create an operational plan for everything that happens. And that way you can simplify, codify, and multiply. And the 4 steps of the delegation process are like this, or the feedback process. Number 1 is tell me something that you did well. Number 2, tell me something that you could do better. Number 3, let me tell you something I think that you did well. Number 3, something you could do better. It's really, really simple, but why is it so powerful? So when I say, tell me something you did well, when I'm doing feedback and I'm talking about something specific, I'm giving you feedback on something, right? So let's say we did this with one of our landscaping companies. So the guy says, I did a good job anchoring the tree. So if you plant a tree, you have to anchor it properly. Great. Something I could do better. I could have cleaned up better afterwards. I was in a bit of a hurry, and, people get upset if you leave just dirt and stuff around. So he realizes something did. Why is that question so important to start that way? Because what we're trying to create is self-directed leaders. If they're dependent on you, you don't have a company. We're trying to train people how to think, not just how to follow your direction. You're looking for an invisible leader, someone that they don't even know that you're leading, that they feel like they're being led, and they're a self-directed leader. So by asking them one thing you did well, first of all, you start by framing it in the positive way. Number 2 is by getting them, what did you do better? And you get them thinking about, how do I improve? Which is very different than being a cop. So this whole goal that we're speaking about right now is shifting from being a cop to a coach. A cop to a coach. Most people running businesses, they're like, he did this wrong, she did this wrong, you did this wrong, go fix that. Why are they doing that? Because they don't have time. They feel like they don't have time. And so therefore, they're spewing all this negativity all over the place, and they end up being a cop instead of a coach. But when you're a coach, you focus on one sentence, which is coach them in or coach them out, right? One way or the other, but you want to coach them. Tell me one thing you could do well, one thing you could do better. That's number 1. Number 2 is, let me tell you something you did well. I think that you really did a great job by getting to the job on time, getting all your equipment back out on time, and getting back on time and coming in on time and under budget. That was great. One thing you could do better is you could greet the customer and you can give them one of our magnets and let them know that maybe their neighbors saw what they did and they might like it. They might want to do it as well. And by you not talking to people, I know you're not a salesperson. You don't need to be a salesperson, but something you could do better is by interacting with them, because we're all always selling. And that's the ABS, always be selling, right? I'll always be selling. And so everyone is a representation. So what I want to share here that's so important is the feedback loop, these 4 questions, and we'll make these 4 questions available as a resource that goes along with this recording. What are you thinking, Steve?
I'm listening because I think every business owner goes through this. And, I think that is one of the biggest keys where people find themselves really stuck, is right here, is the ability to clearly delegate. And I'm trying to define delegate without using the word, but clearly delegate that. And so many times, I'm sure you see it more than me, it's the abdicating, and they think that they've delegated it. And then all they end up with is frustration, because they can't understand for the life of them why it wasn't clear. Because I can do it. Why can't you?
You're totally right.
That's like telling you, that's like telling your 5-year-old, just get on the bicycle and pedal. I can do it.
Well, just buy a house.
Right.
So the idea here is to be able to build what we'll call a freedom team and a freedom system. And business is a system and a system of systems. And he who has the best system wins. But systems are based on people. And so what we want to do is we want to build an asset. And so in order to do this, we're looking for what we'll call a competitive advantage. In order to create a competitive advantage, you want to look inside and say, what area do I have a 5x competitive advantage? Let me give you an example. So there's a company called Happy Lawns that sold out for about $10 million. There's so many companies who are in competition and it's about the lowest price. And what we saw before was we had Jeff, who was always fighting with the lowest price. In the world of landscaping, oh my gosh, there's so much competition. And what they did, Steve, was they found a competitive advantage, which means that the one area that they decided, just one area they decided to focus on is the quote process. A typical quote process, you cut your own lawn, you have someone else cut it for you.
I cut my own, sorry. Still.
Unbelievable.
I just did last night, but okay, sorry.
So you probably enjoy it. You probably actually get something out of it. I don't know.
Right, correct.
Is it true?
Talk to any landscaper. I don't want to veer off of your show here, the whole conversation here, but landscaping is the ultimate battle between man and nature.
From my perspective, I was brought up by an entrepreneur and he said, John, let your fingers do the walking. And my father, may he rest in peace, he was so not handy, and I'm not handy either. Like my wife is the one that has the drill in the house. So I once saw my father, he was sitting there like edging the sidewalk, but he had a hatchet, a hand hatchet, and he was whacking at it. And like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know. We don't have the right tools, the right thing to do.
That's right. Need the right tools.
So I want to talk about operational advantage. Why this is relevant for everyone listening is when you have an operational advantage, you identify one thing in your business that you do way better than everybody else. That gives you an operational advantage. So for example, for this landscaping, for most landscaping companies, when they want to give you a quote, it's really, really a schlep. What do is, let's say you finally call in and you're just like, okay, I'm interested in, give me a cut. What's it going to cost to do landscaping for our house? They come out, they finally make an appointment. It takes a couple of weeks to make an appointment. You go there and you walk on the yard and you see the trees and you see the irrigation and you see that you got these big trees are in front of the small bushes and it's cover up the windows. And you see that they have trees leaning against the house. And you see that there's brown patches all over the place and there's weeds growing and that it's really quite a mess. So you're thinking, wow, that's a really good thing. And I know they just called me for cutting their lawn, but they got all sorts of things that we can do here. So he said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a quote and then we'll get back together. No problem. Get back together, go back and you do the quote. Now it takes you several days to a week to do the quote. Now you call them back, we get together. Oh yeah, I'd like to get together with me. Let me try to find a time that my husband's here. I'll call you back. You wait a week for that. They get busy. They don't call you back. Now, 2.5 weeks have gone by. You call them again and say, look, I really want to come out and share with you. So you come out there, you finally give them the estimate and it's like, oh, I don't know. That's a lot. We were just kind of looking for land cutting, lawn mowing. And so that's what happens. That's a typical process, is about 3 weeks long, and the closing process is very difficult and very slow. Instead, what Happy Lawns did is said, we're going to reduce this from 3 weeks to 30 seconds. How do they do that? They said, we're going to focus on one thing. Can you explain what tafasta below tafasta means? So it's an Aramaic term that means that if you grab a lot, like if you stick your hand into a pickle jar and you try to grab a whole bunch of pickles, you get stuck. You can't pull it out. If you grab too much, you don't get it. So they said, we're just going to do lawns. And all we're going to do is just mow the lawn. And then we can do upsales later. So they use something called Doe Island, and they use satellite imagery to call people. They would call people and they say, are you interested in a quote for your lawn? And they said, sure. And they would immediately pull up a estimate for their lawn. They would do satellite imaging and they say that'd be $75 per week. And they're like, okay, how often can you do it? And then suddenly like they shortcutted everything very quickly by not doing too much. And so many of us, we want to do too much. And the idea is identifying some sort of operational advantage that you could do much better than everybody else. And that's what allows you to build an asset. And when you do that, you have something that you can sell, as opposed to we do a little bit of this, we do a little bit of that, and everything is custom. So I just want to see if you've seen any of that in terms of the clients that you work with.
That we're working with?
Yeah, that you've worked with in the past. People that get stuck in those ways.
I like I said, I mean, I think any entrepreneur starts off in this stuck stage. Just by definition, almost, it's exactly where they start. It's the ones that can get past this and can figure out a way. For example, Happy Lawns, it's slightly different, but some kind of different, I guess, competitive advantage, you called it, or differential that make that, because you're right. Because what happens is when the landscaper guy comes out, you overwhelm the potential client with all the things that you see. And all they really wanted from you was to cut their lawn. But because you're a landscaper, you see so many things that could be there, which you'll get eventually, but they don't know you. They don't even know if you can cut a lawn well. So cut the lawn good, cut it great, give them a great price. And then when there's a little bit of trust, you can say, by the way, did you notice that tree is about to pull down your gutter? So before you have problems with your foundation, because you don't have a gutter, let's do something about that tree.
So the idea is irresistible bait, and just simplify it, make it simple, make it so that you own a position in the land box. We're going to wrap up today's episode, and we're going to give you something really special. And we're going to then move on to the next episode. So tune back in. This is a 2-part series. What we're going to give you is an asset ability score. An asset ability score is something that looks at several different components of your business. Number one is it looks at your thriving as an owner. And that's going to be our next part, what we're talking about. How are you thriving as an owner? And are you joyous? Are you playing to your habits? And next is we're going to talk about your freedom team and your freedom system. And then that'll include a culture of accountability, a culture of urgency, a path of ascension for your people, the next generation. So what you're doing, and also includes recruiting. We're also going to look at sales and marketing. It's kind of like a boat. In order to have an asset, you have to have enough sales and marketing. And if you don't have enough of that, so the back of the boat will sink. And on the back is the operations. If you have too much operations, so then you sink there and you don't have enough sales that pay for everything. So in sales and marketing, we're going to look at 3 things: the market, the message, and the medium. Who is your hungry fish market? What is the market, the message, and what's your main key message? Meaning, what is your big zig? In what way are you dramatically different? And what is your irresistible bait for hungry fish? Oh, you want a hungry fish. So hungry fish, irresistible bait, the market and the medium. And then lastly, we're going to look at scalability and asset ability with the secret of recurring revenue. And we'll talk about the joy of recurring revenue and some secrets how to build recurring revenue, because that's the golden cow. Because once you have recurring revenue, you have an asset that you can pass on to someone else. So our whole goal here is to create an asset that you can sell or keep, but an asset you shall reap. And on the next episode, Steve's going to share with you a couple more insights that are really exciting in terms of how to use the numbers in a way that most people don't do it. Because Steve, you told me that you won the award, like the smart accountant or something. What?
Something like that. If we won a few awards, but yes, we were named, it's been a while, but we were named one of the smart CPAs in Maryland. That was the award. I'm just looking at it.
Very good. So if you have a nice combination between the inner game and the outer game, you can grow your asset. So I want to thank you and remind you what we do is empower leaders to actually reach their greatest potential through simplify, codify, and multiply, and through our team of psychologists, coaches, and consultants. And our process is something that will help you go to the next level. Steve, closing thoughts?
It's always a pleasure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Our mission at Turning Point is to help leaders maximize their potential. We have created an awesome assessment that helps you identify these things and sets you on the path to living with joy, making more money, and increasing your productivity. Take it at myturningpoint.com/quiz. That's myturningpoint.com/quiz. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.